Hi, I'm Adrienne Cole, President and CEO of the Raleigh Chamber. Thank you so much for joining our first live stream Chamber Professional Women's event. We have an exciting program planned. I would like to thank each of you for your engagement in the Chamber, and I hope you enjoy this new way of learning and engaging with our fantastic speakers. The well-being of our members and partners is paramount. We are following the recommendations of social distancing from our health and government officials to slow the spread of the coronavirus. That is why we're using this new method to connect with each of you. And we remain committed to providing you with resources to grow and expand your professional goals and connections. We will continue to provide learning opportunities to you and your teams. We also sincerely appreciate the support of all of our sponsors. Because of their commitment to this series, we are able to present important and relevant topics throughout the year. Thank you to each of these sponsors. Our Diamond Series sponsors, Credit Suisse and Green Resources, thank you so much. Our host sponsor, Raleigh Marriott Crabtree Valley. Our advertising sponsor, ABC 11 Eyewitness News, WTVD. Our AV sponsor, On Services. And our series sponsors, Citrix, Eaton, Lane and Associates Family Dentistry, Mertz North America, and Triangle Springs Hospital. Thank you all so very much. During this session, let's stay connected. Join today's discussion on Twitter. We can all use the hashtag RaleighCPW and tag us using @RaleighChamber. Our talk may even start trending. Our experts will share trends, issues, and challenges in managerial diversity. During these 3 lightning-style talks, we will find out how they ensure every member of their team is involved and has opportunities. First, we will hear from the Economic and Local Government Manager for Dominion Energy, formerly PSNC Energy. She works as the community liaison in the Triangle area, covering 11 counties. She recently was appointed Development and Local Government after serving as Regional Manager of Field Customer Service for Dominion Energy NC Gas. In her Regional Manager role, she led 3 corporate-level initiatives and mentored more than 20 employees into new roles. We'll speak with Julia Wright. Then we will meet the Associate General Counsel and Assistant Secretary for BASF. She leads commercial counsel for the crop protection business of BASF, a critical part of the company's Agricultural Solutions business unit. She's a member of the North American and Global Agricultural Solutions leadership teams, is an active mentor for BASF employees, and is a former executive sponsor for the corporation's African American Employees Group. We are looking forward to talking to Melanie Stevens. And we will learn from a real estate and operations executive with 25 years of experience in both entrepreneurial and public companies. As Director of Real Estate and Strategy at Citrix, she is responsible for the Raleigh built environment, as well as global real estate and facility services initiatives. Her prior roles include leading operations for a local architecture firm, growing the national distribution network for a title insurance company, and tackling due diligence, property operations, and asset management for a real estate investment trust. We'll hear from Jenna Geigerman. So first up, Julie.
Hello, everyone. What a pleasure to join you today. As Adrienne mentioned, I'm Julia Wright with Dominion Energy, formerly PSNC Energy, your natural gas provider. And I hope that all of you are natural gas customers, but if not, please look me up afterwards. However, I wanted to paint a picture of what diversity looks like for Dominion Energy North Carolina. And to do so, let me provide you with a couple examples. Approximately 20 years ago, myself along with another female, we became the first females in our large accounts department. So we were able to manage our industrial customers. What a wonderful breakthrough. However, we didn't last but maybe a year. Our first day we started together, and our last day we ended together. She had a wonderful opportunity outside the organization and she left. And I had another wonderful opportunity within the organization. So what does large accounts look like now at Dominion Energy North Carolina? Well, today, there are no females in that role, and we have one person of color. Now, I moved on to a position of a regional field customer service manager. What a wonderful opportunity, as I mentioned. I was responsible for the Raleigh region, which is approximately 220,000 customers. At that time, for a regional manager, I was the only female of color and the only female in that role. Now, we have recently gone on through a reorganization. What does it look like now when we look at our regional managers? Unfortunately, there are no females. However, we do have a person of color. So I didn't really paint the best picture, huh? How did we get there? So we had a little case of can't see the forest for the trees. We started to take a look at what was going on because all of a sudden our workforce did not look like the communities we were serving. So how did we get there? Well, let me tell you something about the company I work for. We have awesome employees. There's not a challenge that doesn't pull us all together, and there's not a victory where we're all not willing to celebrate. So when we took a look at our recruiting method, we thought these are great people and they've got to hang around great people. So why don't we just create a recruiting culture of family and friends? Well, the problem is that we started off with a workforce that really wasn't diverse, and they pretty much hung out or related to people that look like them. So once we kind of took a look at the forest that we were in and we said, this is not right, we need to move forward. And we need to change the way we look so that we do like the communities we serve. We have changed our practices. So now, when we are bringing people into the organization, in order to even have candidates come to interview, we require 2 diverse candidates. That's on that one side of the table. On the other side of the table, our interview team has to look different as well. So we require a diverse interview panel. Now for us, we thought, yeah, sure, we'll have a person from construction, we'll have a person from service. No, that interview panel, you have to have one person of at least a different gender or a different race. So I am so excited to see what we're gonna look like a year from now, 5 years from now. There's no doubt that we're gonna look like the communities we serve. Now let me back up a little bit and talk about managing diversity. As a field customer service manager, I had the opportunity to create the team that I wanted. And I understood stepping into that role, the team had to be diverse. Our main function in the department that I manage was disconnection for non-payment at any premise. So that's at any place of business or any residence. No matter where you lived or where you worked, you didn't pay your bill, we were going to arrive on site. I knew it was really important that the people that went out and touched these customers did not have to walk into a situation where their perceptions could cloud the way we would service those customers. Because ideally, we wanted to get the money and help set them up for a better future of paying us. So I knew that if I had a team that worked with a diverse, understood the importance of diversity, when they go out and they intermingle with our customers, they knew how to treat them with respect. And so strategically, I walked in day one planning that. So when I brought in a person, in terms of training, I had one person that was our primary trainer. However, I also would have you as a new employee spend a day with each person that was on your team. So what did that mean? Well, let me tell you something. As a customer field rep in my department, it was close quarters, okay? You were in a vehicle with a lot of computer equipment and you were hanging out with a person all day long. And so you were going to spend time learning the differences of that teammate so that you could respect those differences. And you were also going to find something in common with that teammate so that you knew that even though we are all different, there's so much more that we have in common. Didn't stop there. Once you went through the primary trainer and you spent time with all your teammates, you spent a day with me. And yes, we were out there. We were crawling under bushes. I was running away from snakes, and together we ran away from dogs. However, I needed that time with each person because I need to know their differences so that as a leader, I could lead them well. And I need to build that bond, so finding something in common. Didn't stop there when it comes to diversity. I even strategically placed them in cubicles with one another, that with other people that were so different. And to give you an example, I had 2 employees. One female, she was a female of color. She was from up north, a millennium, and loved technology. She shared a cube with a gentleman. He was not of color, a retired police officer who said, I'm not going to sit at home and rot, I need another job, loathed technology, and was a baby boomer. Now, how do you think that worked out? Awesome. It was so wonderful to watch how she would take time to teach him technology to the point where he would volunteer for projects. And then with the gentleman, I watched him teach her face-to-face skills and servicing our customer and de-escalating the situation. But it grew beyond that. They created a bond. They created a friendship. And that is what happens when you have a diverse workforce. The synergy that's created, we did the unthinkable. 220,000 customers. When I'm fully staffed, it's 8 people, and we're completing 35,000 to 38,000 service orders a year. It didn't make sense on paper. Now, there are some challenges too. Remember, the same 2 people I told you shared a cube together. Well, there comes a time you get to know each other, and sometimes those lines get blurred when it comes to diversity. And how do you manage those challenges? Well, I can remember one day I'm sitting at my desk working away. It's the end of the afternoon. They come in, and I could hear, because I'm sitting across from the crew room, and it's just when they started talking about the hashtag #MeToo movement. And the gentleman goes on, and I'm mortified. And I thought, he cannot be having this conversation with her. No. And I can't hear her response at all. So I'm running out of my office as fast as I can. And I just kind of show up, and I'm just like, hey. And I'm trying to stop the conversation. She quietly gets up. I ask her if she's okay. She walks out. I pull the gentleman aside, and I kind of ask him, how do you think that conversation went? Surprisingly, he didn't think it was a big deal. He didn't even fully grasp that she was upset or bothered. Now, these 2, they kind of hung out. They would meet sometime for lunch. But he had gotten so comfortable that he forgot to respect the differences. So we had a brief conversation, and I tried to discuss, how are we going to handle this going forward? He did not want to damage that relationship. So the next morning, he had a conversation with her. I'm in my office holding my breath. And then he checks in with me, and he says, thank you, because I forgot that even though we do hang out and we have something in common, I crossed a line. And I said, so how are things now? Within 15 minutes, the 2 of them are back out laughing and having that conversation. And that's another thing about diversity. It allows you to have enough respect to be able to talk through some difficult topics. So in closing, I want to say that there are times that, as I mentioned, the culture of my company was that, we really didn't focus on diversity like we should have, but I was placed in an opportunity to be able to bring in diversity. And as supervisors, managers, anywhere that you can make a difference and bring in diversity, I ask that you do take the opportunity to do so. And I thank you for your time today.
Hi, my name is Melanie Stevens, and I'm the Associate General Counsel for BSF Corporation and Research Triangle Park, specifically our agricultural solutions business, which has grown substantially over the last 18 months or so. Today, I'm going to talk, though, more about our legal department that services all of BSF Corporation in North America. And I'd like to start out with some statistics of which we're fairly proud. Our total legal department for North America, which is the United States, Canada, and Mexico, is 60% female. It is 20% minority within the leadership for that department, so the general counsel and his direct reports for North America, it is 50% female and 17% minority. And in our overall attorney community, it is 48% female and 15% minority. Would we like to see those minority numbers continue to go up? Absolutely. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ways that we're dealing with our in-house department. I'm going to really focus much more today in sharing with you the ways that BASF as a law department has committed to advancing the cause of increasing diversity within the legal field, and specifically with the top 25 outside counsel law firms that we work with. The ways that we've used questionnaires and demographics and information, and how we're continuing sort of to live our journey to become not just diverse, but inclusive. So I'll share a little bit about the ways that we're doing that. Are we done? No. Do we feel like we're making excellent progress in developing good credibility with our staff and with our outside counsel? Absolutely. And most importantly, we feel like we're beginning to develop an extended legal team, both in-house and outside, that reflects the composition of our clients and our BSF customers. So let me start with what BSF Law Department has done to advance the diversity within our own department. We've redefined diversity in a number of relevant ways. So the classic sort of immutable characteristics test with regard to gender, race, sexual orientation, LGBTQ, abilities, etc., but also in terms of flexible working styles, different personalities, introverts, extroverts, really trying to advance the discussion and making people feel like they can be authentic in the workplace and be very comfortable when they come to work at BASF. We are ranked as a 2019 top performer by the Leadership Council on Legal Diversity. We are sponsors of that program and also send at least 2 attorneys from our department to their leadership program each year. We've started an in-house legal diversity team within the department that began in roughly 2015, 2016, and has been going for 5 years now. And similar to what Julia referred to with regard to our interview panels, as a matter of policy, the panels must be diverse on both sides of the table. So we require that there are diverse candidates that are asking the questions, and that every interview panel, before it can move forward, has both minorities and females well represented on that interview panel. We are, as a legal department, also big supporters of the Mansfield Rule put forth by the American Bar Association, which has stated that law departments or law firms should aspire to have at least 30% minority or female participation. I think based on the numbers that I quoted you from the law department, you can see that BSF has lived that commitment. But we continue to wonder about how do we capture even more minority candidates in particular. How do we reflect the reality of our business partners and our clients? How do we improve their level of satisfaction and engagement? And how do we make our commitment to diversity even more concrete? So in 2017, we initiated what we call our diversity program for outside counsel. We do that with the top 25 firms, 25 being determined by external spend. The top 25 firms that we use on an annual basis. That survey and questionnaire is updated annually, and the results of that survey and are shared with each firm every year, not just the information that they gave to us, but the ways that we've evaluated and compared or contrast them with the other 24 firms that were in the scope of our the scope of our questionnaire. And that occurs in a relationship meeting where the responsible business attorney, our general counsel, and our diversity lead sit down with the relationship partner from that law firm and actually discuss what they reported, how that compares, what we view as very positive, where we'd like to see improvements, in order to have that sort of open dialogue and encourage them to understand how much we mean it and how much importance we place on it, and how we'd love to see their their relationship with their own diversity initiatives continue to grow and evolve as ours do as well. So what are some of the things that are on that questionnaire? It is the ABA model questionnaire that we use. And I recommend that if you're curious about it, you take a look. It's fairly in-depth. It does provide at the beginning a demographic snapshot of each law firm, asking about gender representation, minority representation, LGBTQ, abilities, flexibility of working, reduced hours, but also gets into some more in-depth and frankly sometimes uncomfortable areas with regard to equity partnership, non-equity partnership, associate percentages. Who do they keep? Who leaves every year? How frequently do they leave? Is there a particular demographic or issue that you can see over a course of 3 or 4 years? What about the leadership of the firm? What's the composition of the managing partners of each firm? What does that look like? And is it moving in the right direction or is it moving in the wrong direction? And if it's moving in the wrong direction, are they asking themselves why? We also ask about support for reduced hours or flexible workspace because we recognize that's important for a number of workers. And we also ask about highly compensated partners, the top 10% of folks who make money in that firm. Who are they and what's their composition, and is that moving forward or staying static? Does the firm have a diversity commitment? Do they have a written policy statement? Do they have a strategy for how they'll improve that? And do they live that? And how would we define living that? And how do they define living that? And that's part of the discussion. Do they have partnership compensation that's tied to achieving diversity targets? Is there a full-time diversity professional who's engaged either on staff or through a extensive consulting arrangement? And do they support and offer training like unconscious bias training? Do they have employee resource groups? So BSF has a lot of employee resource groups. Do these law firms have such things, focusing on ethnicity or gender or LGBTQ, veterans, abilities, etc.? When they look at their succession plans, what do they address with regard to expectations for diversity? What are their hire fire slates? What do those look like? Are they making decisions about hiring and retaining people by asking a diverse slate of people? Do they offer paid parental leave? Do they offer flex time? And do they offer mentoring and give attorneys credit for the time that they spend pursuing mentoring, particularly with regard to diversity issues? Our program here, as I said, has been going on for about 3 years. It continues to evolve. We're not using it in a punitive fashion. We don't want these firms to feel like if they don't hit a particular threshold, they'll be dropped from the list. But we are consciously evaluating, reevaluating, and engaging in these dialogues to try to emphasize the importance of thinking about these issues, putting forward real effort and time, and making this sort of diversity initiative real. For BSF and for our law department, we think there's 4 significant benefits. First, supporting diversity aligns our work with external firms that think like us and value the things that we value and that we know that our customers and our clients value. It clearly aids us in recruiting and retaining some of the best talent for our own department and for the firms that we're heavily investing in terms of these outside relationships. It helps to attract the best talent and, frankly, defines best in a much more broad and inclusive and, frankly, we believe, meaningful way. And then finally, it reflects our client base and our customer base and makes coming to work better by making the folks we interact with on a regular basis relatable, credible, looking like we do. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna Geigerman. I'm the Director of Real Estate and Strategy for Citrix in Raleigh. So Thank you for having us, Adrienne and Des. One of my favorite quotes is by Vernee Myers, who's the VP of Inclusion Strategy at Netflix. Diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is being asked to dance. I first heard this quote when I was being interviewed about Citrix, about our culture for a recruiting website. And the talking points I was given in preparation added a third part to that saying, which was belonging is hitting the dance floor with passion and abandon. This addition of belonging, which turns the acronym of DNI to DIB, is relatively new, at least at Citrix. I think it reflects the awareness that just like diversity is multifaceted and not just about protected classes, the challenge of creating integrated teams and corporate cultures is not just about who is at the table, as we are at a table, but who is leading the meeting, who is encouraged to speak, and whose ideas are included in the solutions. The benefits of diversity in the workplace are numerous and well documented. A 2018 study of 1,000 companies by McKinsey found that companies that are in the top quartile for gender diversity in their executive teams were 21% more likely to experience above average profitability. Meanwhile, if you have ethnic and cultural diversity, the result was 33% increase in performance. Studies show that employees from companies that are diverse in both inherent and acquired traits, which are those that you gain from life and work experience, are 45% more likely to report a growth in the market share over the previous year. And they're 70% more likely to report that the firm captured a new market. But diversity is only part of the opportunity to meaningfully improve performance. If a bunch of people are invited to the dance, but they're not invited to participate in the dancing, you have a lot of people on the dance floor doing the white man shuffle. And as we know, that is not a very dynamic scene. A 2018 Gartner Leadership Validation Survey found that teams that are both diverse and highly inclusive perform 40% better than teams that are equally diverse, but not as inclusive. So getting lots of different people on the dance floor is key. That said, there can be some challenges with diversity in the workforce, both interpersonally and with creating actual equal opportunity for all. And my colleagues have mentioned that as well. When there's a lack of acceptance of the diverse culture and belief among employees, conflicts can arise, as we heard a story. Diversity training helps employees understand, accept, and respect each other's differences. But I think, as Julia mentioned, sometimes active intervention is actually required. A University of Wisconsin study revealed that people with African American sounding names are 14% less likely to get a call back. So by removing the candidate's name and other identifying criteria from their application, you can remove bias from the recruiting strategy. And the same goes for removing gender bias when names of females and males are removed from the hiring decisions. And a statistic that's familiar to many of us, which is that female workers make only 82 cents for every dollar earned by a man. Because of this, women start out earning less, and then they continue to earn less in each subsequent job because their new salary is based on previous earnings. So what can we do about these things? These gaps, of course, are a result of both active and implicit bias. When what we intentionally do, for example, by hiring people who look, think, act, and speak like us, or perhaps are in our families or our friends, right? As well as what we unintentionally do, where we make unconscious assumptions about people because of our filing system and the way that our brain works to process information. So how do you create an environment where people not only get a foot in the door, but they feel like they have as much value as everyone else in the company? At Citrix, we no longer ask candidates what they are currently earning. And instead, we use market pricing to make competitive and fair compensation offers, which enables us to win top talent and to eliminate pay inequities. We also use gender-neutral job postings with gender-neutral language to attract more candidates. We have diverse interview panels. That seems to be a common theme for our companies. And this year, we're expanding our bias mitigation work into performance management and compensation for existing employees. We provide managers toolkits. There's one for mitigating bias in hiring and one for diversity, inclusion, and belonging to help increase awareness and support inclusive behaviors. I'm going to mention some of the specific tools, and these are things that you can feel free to develop in your company or to look for outside resources. I mean, a lot of the stuff, Google is your friend. Don't ask, just Google it. An advisory network assessment. So encourage employees to think about who you turn to when you're looking for insights or trying to make an important decision, and reflect, are those people like me? Am I getting input from people who have a different perspective than I might? Bias mitigation statements. So what are some statements that you can use to raise awareness in the moment to make less biased decisions? There's a groupthink discussion guide to examine how groupthink behavior or conformity bias can influence your team's dynamics and decision making. And if this is something of interest to you, one of my favorite books I read recently is Quiet by Susan Cain, which not only talks about introversion, but it also talks about some of this groupthink bias and like the dangers of brainstorming, which was very insightful and eye-opening to me. There's an implicit bias test we use, which is a simple and scientific measure to just give you some self-reflection on unconscious bias across a variety of categories, including race, weight, disability, age, sexuality, and gender. So if you'd like to take a test like this, it's probably the same test. Just Google Harvard bias test and the results. I've done that myself, and as much as you think that you are not biased, I am telling you 100% you are biased. So just own up to it and reflect on it and be aware. We also have some other interviewing tools, like interviewing questions to assess diversity values and skills, so that we're assessing some cultural fit at the front end, an interviewing guide for veterans, and an interviewing guide for people with disabilities. So Citrix uses several avenues to promote diversity so that we can attract and retain key talent. Like BSFF, we have employee resource groups. So we have 8 employee resource groups with 25 chapters in 6 countries. They're focused on women, Black, LGBTQ, veterans, and actually a foster care and adoptive families and their allies. We connect with candidates through partnerships with diverse organizations like Girls Who Code. We send high potential employees to conferences for professional development and to help with recruiting. We administer a self-ID initiative to look at the demographic differences in our employee engagement survey. And actually, when our site leadership team reflected our global employee survey results to our site, we looked at those lenses to say, are we getting different experiences for age or racial diversity, or all the different the metrics that they were using, so that we can understand, are people's experiences the similar? Is there an opportunity for us to improve their experience and be more consistent? And we also launched a 3-part learning series to cultivate a culture of belonging that helps our employees examine their own identities and their business networks that they build, to learn to mitigate unconscious bias, and to practice inclusive behaviors. In addition to employee diversity, we look at supplier diversity. And so definitely echoing what you've heard from Melanie. So we actually actively track that. We have 300 active diversity suppliers. In corporate social responsibility, we include encouraging STEM as a career and providing scholarships to Girls Who Code. Advancing social good with issues like LGBTQ, that is a mouthful. That is LGBTQ, the equity, the immigration policy, donations and volunteerism, and advancing opportunities for the underserved in developing economies. That's all good context and culture and tools, but ultimately it matters how well people feel like they belong. Are they able to dance with passion and abandon? I mentioned our employee resource groups. So the thing about our ERGs is that they don't just plan events for their members, but they really plan events for the entire Raleigh site. So our Pride Alliance recently gave everyone on the site the opportunity to recognize a coworker with a kind word and a rose for Valentine's Day. Our Black Professionals Network had a happy hour and poetry reading for Black History Month that was open to everyone. Our Women's Inspirational Network has speed mentoring that includes both men and women as participants. And our ERGs take turns hosting Snack Wednesday, which turns a treat into a message promoting belonging. In our experience, food is the great equalizer. Personally, as part of our site leadership team and a champion of diversity for the Raleigh campus, I've been a part of a lot of fun projects that celebrate a wide range of diversity. So we have digital signage, and we have people have an opportunity to share their hobbies, their family stories, and what makes them diverse. And that is a fascinating question to ask people, because the things that people identify as diversity often aren't what you would physically see as diversity, but really how they think that they bring a new vision to the world. Like my example, that I work for a tech company and I am over 40 years of age. We'll just say that. At the time I did it, I was over 40. I had not hit the next mark, but let's just leave it there. So the other thing we did is we have a map of the globe in our lobby. So when people come in, they can pin where they were born. So that just celebrates the, sort of our geographic and cultural diversity of people on the site. One strategy I'd recommend, so when we go to strategies to encourage a diverse leadership, is to be vocal when you see opportunities to improve diversity. And I think Julia gave us a lot of good examples of that. When we initially hired a security team for Raleigh, they presented a slate of officers who were literally all old white men. I told the hiring manager that I could not only outrun most of them, but I could probably win them in a fight. And my expectation was that our security team would represent the population of our employees and the population of the community. They came back with a team that had more women, people of color, and age diversity on the security team. Our executive leadership team at Citrix for my first few years was all white men. Then they hired a chief people officer who, not surprisingly, was a female. But that was still not enough. And so at several global employee meetings, people stood up and asked our CEO why there wasn't a more diverse executive leadership team in the C-suite, despite significant diversity at lower levels in the company and a strong culture of inclusion. I'm proud to say the most recent addition to the team was a female chief information officer. I'm quite sure she was the most qualified candidate, but as we all know, the way to get the strongest diverse new hires is to have a rich pool of diverse interviewees. So don't be afraid to ask the tough questions and to let people know when the bar isn't set high enough, when the room isn't full of people from different backgrounds and perspectives, and when there aren't enough people dancing their heart out. Thank you. I am stuck. Okay.
Thank you, Julia, Melanie, and Jenna. What incredible information and such an important topic, and one that the Chamber is very much committed to with our Triangle Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Alliance. Thank you all so much for joining us online today. I am personally so grateful. I think that the world is adapting to the reality that we're all facing right now, and the ability to pivot quickly and to have our sponsors and our attendees and our speakers pivot with us, it just means an awful lot to us. So we're very grateful, and thank you so much. Our next Chamber Professional Women's Luncheon will be held at the Raleigh Marriott Crabtree Valley on July 17th. The topic will be how women drive innovation, creativity, and growth in entrepreneurship. Christine Block will be our moderator. She is the CEO of Starting Block. Our panelists will be Jess Porta, Executive Director of HQ Raleigh, Maggie Kane, Executive Director of A Place at the Table, and Taryn Henry, CEO of Taryn Enterprises. Again, thank you so much for your flexibility. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great day.